Everyone wants to take their business, their skills, to the next level. Small and mid-sized business owners have exceptional insight into how to do this. They endure and thrive because they find ways to overcome the challenges that come their way, and they can teach us valuable lessons to apply to our own companies and lives. Stephen Nooner, founder and owner of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. And Bob Gibbons, builder of Riata Commercial Realty, a real estate advisor and tenant advocate, are two prominent Metroplex businessmen who, along with their weekly guests, will ask their and your probing questions, finding impactful solutions that will help you reach for the next level. Here are your hosts, Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons.
Welcome to The Next Level, Conversations that Propel Business. This is your host, Bob Gibbons. And I'd like to say Stephen Nooner is my co-host, but unfortunately he is under the weather today and will not be joining us. So I'm flying solo with our guest today. So what is The Next Level all about? Well, we're a show that celebrates the entrepreneurial spirit and wants to build up the entrepreneurial community. Our goal is to facilitate fun and meaningful conversations where learning can occur, and we learn from the experiences of our guests. And so we're excited about our guest today, Nate Foreman. Nate is the owner and founder of Foreman Therapy Services, LLC, based in Dallas. They've been in business since 2011, and they now have over 200 employees in Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and El Paso. Revenues exceeding $10 million. That's pretty amazing when you think that they've been in business since 2011, 4 years, and they're over 10 million. So we'll talk about that. Nate is a graduate of OSU, and we're not going to hold that against him. But if you'd like to know more about Foreman Therapy Services, please go to their website at forementherapyservices.com. Welcome, Nate.
So great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you here. So We always like to start off with a quote from someone else, somebody else's wisdom. So our wisdom today comes from a guy named Al Fike. And Al is a Dallas-based comedian, if you would believe that, and author. He's a Christian author. And I actually just heard him speak last week for the first time. And so I got one of his books, and I've been reading his books, and he had a quote that I really liked. I actually only heard it this morning while I was driving in the car. And he said that greed is getting something from someone else at their expense, while ambition is receiving a reward for serving others. And I love that quote because business people are always being accused of being greedy, and some of them are. There's somebody that's always going to mess up everything and make the rest of us look bad. But really what business ought to be about is serving others, finding a need, something that other people want and can use, and giving it to them for a fair trade of money or services. And so I just love that quote.
No, I think that's good. I think one thing that I always try to do is I always try to make other folks successful and myself being successful just in turn. And so, creating great opportunities for our staff, creating great opportunities for our customers, making them feel successful. And it's, in turn, hopefully some of that would come back on me.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to talk a little bit in the, to get to know you a little better. I want to talk a little bit about some things about you that maybe people don't realize. Like I was cruising your website, and I'm sorry, but I've got to ask you about a couple of things. I know you're a big NBA fan, and I understand that the Oklahoma City Thunder is your team. How long have they been in Oklahoma City? When did Oklahoma City get an NBA team?
Yeah, so we've had the Thunder, man. This could be wrong. I think we've probably had them for 7 or 8 years. It's funny. We've actually got a lot of folks on staff from Seattle, and they always give me a hard time because we actually took the Thunder from Seattle. They were previously
the Sonics, wasn't it?
The Seattle Supersonics. So they're great. I'm a pretty diehard NBA fan. I'm from the Oklahoma City area, so my allegiance is certainly.
Now you like to play it too. So
I do like to play it.
I got to ask you about this. I want to know if this is a real thing. You said on your website that you played point guard for the OSU All-Asian basketball team. Is that real?
That is a real thing. Most people don't know. So I went to college at Oklahoma State. And it's funny because if you're at a major university, you'll likely have an all-Asian basketball team for university, which is funny. So the rules is you can have one non-Asian.
Okay.
Right? And so, at all these tournaments, it's hilarious because we go to these tournaments and they there's all these little 5'10" Asians running around here and one 6'8" black guy. And basically, whoever has the best 6'8" black guy wins. So, yeah, but I would that is on my resume. So I was I played on the OSU Asian basketball team. I'm pretty washed up right now, but I still like to run around
That's
from time
hilarious.
to time.
Well, I love that. It's fun to hear about things like that. So, let's get into the meat of the business talk. So you're the founder and owner of Foreman Therapy Services, and you only graduated from college in like 2007. So you were pretty young when you did this. What possessed you to want to do that?
Right. Yeah. So my story, I graduated Oklahoma State in 2007, and in December 2009, I graduated physical therapy school. I went to PT school here in Dallas at UT Southwestern, and so, upon getting out, my original intent was to start a sports medicine clinic. That was my plan, and so I always had this entrepreneurial drive, and being very active growing up and being involved in sports, I thought it would make sense to open a sports medicine clinic. And so that was my intent in coming into PT school and even going through school. That was my goal. And so my first job was at a sports medicine clinic here in Dallas, and it was great. It was a really great learning experience for me, and started working part-time for this home health therapy company, and the goal of that was just simply to pay off some student loans. And so started working part-time, and really started to understand the business, and I just recognized there was significant need, especially in the DFW area. And so I saw that need. I saw how companies were doing it. I thought that I could do it better. And so in September of 2011, so it was about a year and a half after I got out of PT school, I decided to start Foreman Therapy Services, which was it was pretty interesting because upon starting it, I owned this staffing company, yet I was the only staff of the company.
So how do you balance trying to go out and get clients while at the same time providing the therapy?
Yeah, so it was hilarious. Some of my first marketing attempts, I was going into these customers, these different home health agencies and whatnot here in Dallas, and kind of using all these plural terms. I was saying our company, our staff, us, when in reality it was just me. And
yes.
So fortunately we were able to get some contracts and hit the ground running. It's been a fun ride from there.
That's great. So when you're out there trying to get contracts but also doing the therapy, I read that you had some magic going on with clothing and how you would make that switch.
Yeah, so it was a challenge because I was the secretary, I was the accountant, I was the lawyer, I was the customer service, and I was the PT, I was the staff. And so I had to wear like 7 different hats. And so one thing that I always did was I had this Toyota Prius, so this 2010 Toyota Prius that I have put close to 250,000 miles on today.
Wow.
But had this car, and always carried. I was in my scrubs to work to see patients, but I always carried a slacks and a tie in my back seat. And so whenever I drove by a hospital or home health agency, I just whipped in a gas station, changed to my slacks and tie. Drove into the home health agency, dropped off some business cards, and then went back to the gas station, changed back to my scrubs, and then kept on going. So it was a grind. I working 18 to 20 hours a day was pretty normal. I did that for a couple of years. So fortunately now we've got adequate staff, a really strong administrative staff that I don't have to do that anymore. But it was certainly an interesting ride.
Well, I love hearing the dedication and the realization that you needed to have a different hat on, so to speak, for the different audiences that you were in front of. So often we see people that just kind of go out there and sort of treat everybody the same in every situation, and it's just not that simple. So that first year that you started, what kind of revenue?
Yeah, so we started in September 2011, and so it's for for the first 3 months, so I guess October, November, December, we did about 30,000. A lot of that was just me. Our first full year, which would be 2012, we did about $1 million, and
wow,
which was great. It's
that's like 10x, because I mean 30,000 for 3 months would be like 120,000 annualized. So you go to $1 million, you're like 10x in no time.
Yeah, it was pretty great, and that number is somewhat deceiving because most would say that you're making money when you have that much revenue, but that was not the case with us. And so one story I like to tell is just to gain momentum. That's the hardest part. So what I always preach to our staff is going from 0 to 1 million in sales. That's harder than going from 1 to 5 or 5 to 10
Yes.
or 10 to 100. That first 0 to 1, that's what weeds out most people. And so, what I did, which was a huge risk, was I purposely created negative cash flow. And, I didn't have a strong company to offer since, it was just kind of me, running it myself. And so I knew that I had to get customers. And, I was putting myself in the customer's shoes and saying, if I was a customer, why would I want to work with us? And the solution to that, the answer that I came up with was because we're going to be far cheaper and provide a lot better service. And so in doing so, we undercut the market I undercut the market by probably 30 or 40%.
Wow.
And worked my butt off for them. And so, we had tons of customers coming in because, they were getting a great service at a very low cost. And so on the flip side, we had all these customers, and now I had to find staff to fill them. And so, alternatively, I was like, okay, if I'm a PT, if I'm a physical therapist here in town, why would I want to work with us when there's all these different other companies that are way more established? And so my answer was because I'm going to pay them more. And so what that looked like was us paying about 15% more than we were charging our customers. And so, which once you scale that out, that equated to losing about $7 or $8 grand a month for a while, which is pretty scary.
Yeah, that's not sustainable.
No. And so the way I floated that was I worked a lot myself. I staffed myself out a lot too, since I'm a PT, and I just didn't pay myself. And so, that was certainly scary. Now I see it's very well worth it. But, that's definitely not sustainable long term.
No, I wouldn't want to do that for very long. Well, when you were out there doing that, what was the biggest thing that got you in the door? Was it just the discounted rate? Mm-hmm. That was, but in most of the services you do paid by insurance. So why would they care? Yeah,
so we're a fee-based. So our customer are these home health agencies, and they're the ones that are billing the insurance. And so we're a fee-based vendor for them. And so, so we're not directly billing the insurance.
I see.
And so,
so it makes a difference.
Yeah, yeah. So the value add was obviously the rate, but also just the service that they got. I tried to be everybody's best PT, and that's kind of how I've always operated. And so when you do that over time and are just dependable, that makes a difference. And so I think that's why a lot of customers move to us.
Well, we're going to take a quick break.
And now, Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and I am your recovering landlord. After 20 years as a landlord, I now use that experience only for the benefit of companies that lease or buy office buildings and warehouses. Today's confession: knowledge is power. We all negotiate from a position of power and strength, or at least we want to. In any negotiation, the party with the most knowledge probably has the upper hand. And landlords count on this being the case whenever you're negotiating a lease, because most landlords are professional real estate investors, and they hire professional leasing agents and property managers. Landlords are in the market every day negotiating leases, while tenants probably only negotiate 1, maybe 2 leases every few years. So tenants feel outgunned. Don't let landlords have all the power. As a former landlord for 20 years, I understand how landlords think and what motivates them. So let me put that knowledge and experience to work on your side of the negotiation. To learn more, contact me at texastenantrep.com. Again, that's texastenantrep.com.
Have you started making plans to take your business to the next level in 2016? Hi, I'm Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali. We have a trademark process called the Empowered Advantage that enables CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs to more effectively buy and manage their insurance. Before sitting down to make your plans for the new year, here are just a few things to consider. Would you say that you have an actual insurance strategy, one that you can articulate, or have you just purchased a policy here and there over the years? If you have an insurance strategy, was it discussed under the pressure of a renewal deadline or considered earlier in the year to avoid fire drill decision making? If your answer was no to either of these questions, then you may not have the right partner on your team. Visit alkaliservices.com to contact us and take the next step to a bigger and better future.
Hi, this is Jeff Casinas, president of Oats Core. We test all of our products to the highest level of quality, and hopefully Bob and Steve will do that with their show someday.
Welcome back to The Next Level, Conversations that Propel Business. I'm your host, Bob Gibbons, and my co-host, Stephen Nooner, is out sick today. We have our guest, Nate Foreman, with Foreman Therapy Services with us today. If you'd like to know more about him and his company, you can go to his website, Foreman Therapy Services, plural.com. Welcome back, Nate.
Thank you.
So I wanted to get a little bit more into the thing about the employees. So, you're a startup, you're trying to convince people to come work for you, and so you're paying them a little extra. But that's not going to work for everybody because, all right, you pay me a few dollars more, but you're not going to be here in 3 months. What good has that done me? Mm-hmm. So how did you get them to come work for you, and how do you still do that?
Right. Yeah. So I think what it comes down to is just simply our culture that we have. And so we really make a strong investment in our culture and our brand. And so there is so much competition, and a big reason why is because there's a really low barrier of entry in starting these type of companies. And so any PT who has a couple of PT buddies, they can start a therapy staffing company and market to our customers and try to recruit our staff. And so there's so many different so much other competition out there.
Yes.
And so, what we try to do is we really try to focus on our culture. And so, I think that having a team environment, we try to do a lot of philanthropic events, just a lot of social events where, it's really cool because, a lot of our staff is even friends outside of work. And so when I was 27 years old, that's when I started the company. There were so many people that looked at me and said, "Hey, you're so young, you have no experience, you have no connections." That's a huge disadvantage. And so I looked at them and I was like, okay, you're right. All those things are true. However, I'm going to flip that disadvantage. I'm going to flip youth as a disadvantage to an advantage. I'm really going to try to leverage that. And so what I tried to do is create a culture and a brand that's attractive to the younger type of therapist. And so, in working with us, you'll get an owner who's going to be down there in the trenches with you on the weekdays, but hanging out with you on the weekends. And so, we really try to add a social component to our company. And I always use the example of CrossFit. CrossFit is genius because there's a social component to their brand where, if you sign up for CrossFit, you're going to get to go work out, but you're also going to get friends. Right. And so, who don't want friends? And so that's really what we've tried to do as well as is really differentiate ourselves by just our brand and our culture.
And, the thing that you said about being young, I can see why some people would say being young is a disadvantage, but so is being old and lazy. So, that can cut both ways. And I've had quite a few clients that have been really young, and they always start apologizing for that up front. And I always tell them, don't apologize for that. If you're competent, if you have a good idea, you're going to be able to make money and you're going to be able to get customers. So the only person who really cares how young you are is you. Mm-hmm. So don't let it bother you, and it's not going to bother anybody else. Let's move on to another issue that I thought would be interesting to discuss, and that is what's going on in your industry right now? I mean, your healthcare, and of course we know the Affordable Care Act has changed a lot of things. So what's the biggest risk in your industry right now?
Yeah, so the biggest risk for us as in our company FTS is just controlling our growth, and that's that is one thing that I really struggle with. Being an entrepreneur, it is you just want to grow, and it is. Right. We turn down business every single day, which is
wait, stop. I'm sorry. You turn down business every day.
Yeah.
I don't hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So we turn down business every single day, which is painful as an entrepreneur. And so, I've recognized that uncontrolled growth, I mean, that's one of the biggest killers of any business. And so what my role is just to harness my desire just to grow, and just make sure that the growth that we have is safe and controlled. And so, it's definitely hard because my personality is just to say yes. And, but I see all the folks we have on staff, and I take their jobs as my personal responsibility, and I'm not going to jeopardize their jobs just to continue to grow. So, we've gone from 0 to 10 million in the past 4 years, and we certainly hope to continue in that upward trajectory, but we're just going to make sure that it's safe. And so, so for us, that's the biggest challenge.
And growing, is your biggest challenge in growing getting the contracts? It doesn't sound like it if you're turning away business. Or is it finding the employees, the therapists to provide the work? Or is it really on the senior management of knowing how to have the systems in place to manage it?
Yeah. So it's really a balance, and it's a really hard balance to fill. So, you can't have more customers than you do staff, because then you may lose your customers.
Right.
And you can't have more staff than you do customers, so then because then you lose your staff. And so the challenge is it's always a balance between. And so that's kind of my role, is just to make sure that our supply equals our demand, and that it's not out of whack.
Yeah. So you've been running at a dizzying pace in the growth of your company. So there have been highs and lows in that period of time. So give me an idea of some of those highs and lows.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm glad you brought this up, and this is actually a really important part of my development. So, upon starting this business, my personal faith was not an important aspect of my life. And so, as most students come out, didn't have a whole lot of cash, didn't have a whole lot of success. And in reality, I really wasn't super happy or content with my life, how it looked. And so I thought that attaining money and finding that success would provide that for me. And really, that's the big reason why I started FTS, is to attain that. And so, just being on the show, we've had a pretty good run so far, and, it's allowed me to have access to more money than I thought I was going to. And, most would say that our company is what you'd call successful, up to date. And so what I found was that didn't provide that in-game happiness, contentment I was looking for. And what I realized is that it's essentially just a never-ending treadmill. Our company was and is more successful than I thought was possible, but I still wanted more. I was having lunch with a kid the other day. His name's Danny. He's in college at A&M right now, and he looked at me and said, "Nate, my goal is to make $150,000 a year by the time I'm 35.
Yep.
And if I can attain that 150, I'm good. I don't need anything else." And I looked at him and I said, "Danny, you're going to make that 150 because you're a smart kid, and you'll probably make that before you're 35. But once you make that 150, you're going to want 250, then 500, and then $1 million, right? It never stops." And so I would say that my low was just I was putting my identity and my success in FTS, in my company, which is pretty risky because, as you know, success can come and go.
Yes.
I mean, success is just simply a product of how many customers you have and how much revenue those customers are producing. And so, every time we gain a customer, somebody loses a customer. Every time we become more successful, somebody becomes less successful. And so if you're putting your identity in that, man, that's a game that I don't really want to play. And so, when you ask about my high is essentially the same thing as my low. It's, just coming to the realization that money and success can't bring that in-game happiness.
So what does?
So I recognize that in-game happiness and contentment can only be found through Christ. And, I know this isn't a religious show, but I certainly think this is relevant because this is really a prominent factor in all my decisions that I have. And so before, every day I came into work essentially fighting for my life because my value was being based off how our financial statements looked. And now, not having that type of pressure, that really makes life a whole lot easier. And it just allows me to focus on things that are most important. So, as an entrepreneur, it should be so reassuring because it just takes the pressure off. And, that's to say I'm still just as driven, and I'm still just as committed to working and growing FTS. But I can, by God's grace, say that it's no longer my identity.
Yeah.
And, I can truly say that my identity is found in Christ, who's not going to leave me when the economy goes south, and, who's not going to bounce whenever someone can provide a better service than me.
And that doesn't mean necessarily that you're not going to lose it either. I mean, that's the interesting thing is, I know in my own company, I think about the same thing you just articulated. And, what if I just totally, I don't know, like, for example, I have glaucoma. Glaucoma makes you go blind if you don't treat it. So I thought one day, what if I really do go blind? Can I do my job if I go blind? And it's kind of a scary thought, but at the end of the day, I thought, well, all right, so if I do, and I do lose my business, and I can't provide in the long term view, am I going to still be going to heaven for eternity?
Yeah.
That's pretty comforting thought. Nothing else between now and then matters all that much.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur and a believer, I mean, you've got a lifetime guaranteed contract with Christ. There's not a more reassuring thing than that. And so, that's, again, I want to reiterate that doesn't mean I'm less motivated, by any means. And so one of the best things that's really come out of the success that we've had is I've actually been able to gain some influence on some of the younger generation. So, there's young guys that come up to me all the time saying, what do you think about this business or this idea or this product? And so I get to share my story with them and say, there's nothing wrong with making money and wanting to make money. There's nothing wrong with making a ton of money.
Hallelujah.
But, but if you think that's going to provide in-game happiness, you're wrong. And I can tell you that just from the experiences that I've had.
Yes, absolutely. Well, speaking of that, you're talking about young folks. Let's say somebody comes along and says, hey, I want to start my own company. Give me a couple of quickie ideas or things that you would tell them that you've learned.
Yeah, no, I like that. So
first of all, don't go to business school because you didn't. In fact, don't even take a single business class.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So my motto that I try to preach to young kids is sometimes hard work is enough. So there's going to be so many folks that tell you, hey, you need X amount of experience, you need X amount of money, X amount of connections. And I see people just writing themselves off before they even get started. And so, what I always try to tell these folks is that, you may not have these things, but you do have your work ethic, you do have your drive, you do have your vision, and that can't be taken away from you. And so, what I always try to inspire kids to do is just really go after it. And, it may not be picture perfect. Yeah, I mean, you may not have the picture perfect infrastructure set up, but you do have your work ethic and you have your drive, and that's really all you need.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. 3 years from now, where are you going to be?
Yeah, so I just got engaged.
Oh, congratulations!
Appreciate it. Yeah, so we're in wedding planning mode right now. So we'll be getting married here this spring. So personally, 3 years we're going to try to figure out this whole. We'll see about that. We'll be trying to figure out this whole marriage thing together. And so, but
congratulations. That'd be great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to wrap it up, but Nate, thank you so much for having been our guest today on The Next Level. We really appreciate it. If you'd like to learn more about Nate, please do so at ForemanTherapyServices.com. You can also find him on Twitter at Foreman Therapy or Instagram at Foreman Therapy Services. I've never used Instagram in my life, but I'm an old guy. To connect with the show, please go to nextlevelshow.com. You can also find us at Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. And we'll be back next week with another guest, and hopefully Mr. Nooner will be back in the world of the living. See you next week.
You have been listening to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business with Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons. Join us every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. for more prolific conversations that will take your business to the next level.